Hello everyone and welcome. If you're new to my channel, then welcome to Life and Notions. My name is Christine and in today's video I'm going to be tackling all of my books in terms of the KonMari method. I've already pulled out every book that belongs to me in the house and I've laid them out on the kitchen table to go through. I will say first up though, I love books. I love to read every single day and I get through a lot of books in a year. However, for the most part, I am in fact a Kindle reader and I have hundreds if not thousands of books on my Kindle. For the most part, what you're going to see as I go through these books is that they are mostly from my arts and crafts room and they tend to be more reference style books or books which teach you something, how to do a particular craft, painting technique and so on. Or they tend to be books that are reference illustrated books with beautiful pictures and photos of animals, landscapes and nature, because those are the topics which I am particularly interested in. So without further ado, let's dive in and see what in fact does spark joy and what does not. In theory, there shouldn't be too many books for me to let go of today because most of them live in the crafts room, and when Tim and I redecorated the crafts room back in May, we had to of course empty everything out of that room, and before we put everything back, I actually went through everything to make sure there weren't any books or items that I didn't wish to keep. So Tim and I like to keep a few books available to our guests in the guest bedroom so that whilst they're staying with us, our visitors are able to pick up and flick through books or have a quick read before bed if they wish. Just light-hearted, interesting books, and we have a few different ones. These are some ones which I keep in the guest bedroom. I love these books. I just started collecting them a few years ago. They're by an author and illustrator called Jackie Morris. And I think they are absolutely stunning and the stories are lovely. They are classified as children's books. This one is called Something About a Bear, and I'll show you some of the artwork because it's just gorgeous. If you like bears, you will want this book. This one is called Tell Me a Dragon, and in fact Jackie Morris actually did the cover artwork for some Terry Pratchett novels. So if you're into fantasy and Terry Pratchett, you've probably seen her artwork before and didn't know it. So this is just a book of all sorts of different dragons. A very, very simple story, but beautifully illustrated again. If you've been watching my channel for a while, then you're probably well aware of the fact that I love all things to do with snow and the Arctic. And this is the book which actually started it all for me in terms of collecting Jackie Morris books, The Ice Bear. I think this is one of the most beautiful books I have ever owned, and I just think it's gorgeous. Every single page has these incredible paintings, and it's a lovely story and it's just so beautiful. So it definitely sparks lots and lots of joy. I will be keeping all of my Jackie Morris books and hopefully adding to the collection in the future. The next pile I'm going to tackle are my cookbooks. These are actually the only books which I own which get to live in the massive built-in bookcases in my study. The rest of the books in there are in fact Tim's. But let's see what we've got. We've got the Ben & Jerry's ice cream recipe book. This makes really yummy, super unhealthy desserts, but they taste amazing. Definitely sparks joy. Wood for Sheep, the unauthorized settlers cookbook. Tim got this for me very, very recently and I haven't actually looked at it yet, but I'm sure it sparks joy, even if the recipes aren't amazing, although they probably are. It's just so funny. If you don't get the reference, by the way, Settlers refers to the board game Settlers of Catan. It's actually the board game which I did a DIY side table out of. If you've not seen that video, again I'll link that below or in a card above so that you can have a look and see for yourself. But this is a really funny cookbook and I really like the concept. This is the Moomin Cookbook and my parents-in-law gave it to me for Christmas, probably not long after Tim and I were married because we got married in Finnish Lapland, and over in Finland, which is of course where the Moomins are from, You can find Moomin memorabilia everywhere. And this is just a really fantastic recipe book. It's really cute, but it actually has totally legit delicious recipes, including a number of traditional Finnish recipes such as glögi and many other things. So definitely sparks joy. Next, I've just got the little recipe book and guide which came with my KitchenAid ice cream maker attachment. So far we've only tried the vanilla base recipe and the strawberry recipe, and we've done them a couple of times, and each time it's been really, really delicious. So this is definitely a keeper. This is a lovely little book which I picked up at St. Neophytos Monastery in Paphos, Cyprus many years ago. And it's got lots of amazing traditional Cypriot and Greek recipes, and it also explains a lot about the history of olive oil as well as its health benefits and how it's been used in different ways over the centuries. This is really amazing. Everything I've made from this book has been super yummy. This is the Hairy Dietist recipe book, and these guys were, I think, well known for making pies. I've never seen their show or their other cookbooks, but I know that they used to be a lot heavier than they are now, and they lost all the weight just through healthy eating for the most part. So this is a book full of their healthy food recipes. They're all very low calorie, and they're traditional sorts of recipes but made in a low fat way, and they're really nice. Everything I've tried has been really yummy, and I dare say much healthier than it would have been had I made it a different way. So I've really enjoyed this book and I'm going to keep it. Next up is Jamie Oliver's Ministry of Food, and this book is particularly good if you're not a very experienced cook and you need basic pointers. It will teach you how to do everything you can think of, from cooking basic pasta dishes to full roast dinners and everything in between. It's a really good book, and I like how it's laid out. It also shows you how to incorporate different leftovers from different meals into new meals and just make your food go that bit further. This is the little recipe book which came with my crock pot, and it's got really delicious recipes, and you can see I've actually, shouldn't do that, but I've marked my favorite recipe in here, which is the chicken gumbo over rice. It is amazing. I love cooking in my slow cooker, and this is the only slow cooker recipe book which I own because it's the only one I need. It's that good. I love it, and as you can see, it's been very well used and very well loved. Definitely sparks joy. This is the KitchenAid recipe book which I was able to send off for free when I purchased my KitchenAid, and it's a lovely book and I've made some really nice things out of this. But I will say, for the most part, this is definitely a recipe book aimed at more foodies and gourmet style chefs. I don't aspire to such lofty heights on a daily basis. I'm more of a burger and chips kind of girl, but I do really like the recipes in here, and it's nice to have the option to really go all out if I want to do some really fancy cooking. Because I really like the Jamie Oliver recipe book that we've had for a while, Tim actually gave me this one for Christmas, Jamie's 15-minute meals. We've tried a few different things from this and they've all been delicious, so definitely sparks joy. This is the Moosewood Cookbook, and it's quite an unusual book. It looks like it's handwritten and illustrated, although it isn't, and it tends to be very wholesome recipes. I'm sure if you were vegetarian or vegan, you would really love this book. Tim is vegetarian, I'm not, I'll eat just about anything, but Tim is also the sort of vegetarian who doesn't really eat vegetables. And this is the recipe booklet that came with our bread maker. We have had that bread maker for over 10 years and it's never let us down. It's an amazing bread maker and we use it several times a week, and we always use recipes out of this booklet here, and they've always come out amazing. Now I'm sure some of you are going to have a good laugh at this, but this is my favorite cookbook of all time. This is the Junior Cookbook, and I actually remember this book from when I was in primary school. My sister has the same book. I insisted that she try it and she loves it too. And I'll tell you why I love it, because it has recipes for food that I genuinely really enjoy eating. And every single recipe I have tried out of this book has turned out really, really well, apart from one. And it's not just me, it's the recipe itself, because my sister has had exactly the same problem, and that's their cheesecake recipe. The cheesecake just never actually sets, it just stays liquid. But apart from that, every single recipe, and I have tried probably 90% of the recipes in here, have all been absolutely amazing. And I love that it's really simple to follow with illustrations to show you exactly what to do and what things should look like. So I love this book. If you know a young or not amazing cook who would like to improve their repertoire, definitely get them this. And the very last cookbook is a gift from my mum from many years ago. I think this must date back to the 60s or 70s. It certainly has the feel of that sort of era. But the recipes are timeless. There's really, really fantastic recipes in here. And my all-time favorite recipe from this book is the giant oven pancake. So delicious. Just to speed this up a bit, I've already gone through everything in this particular part, so I'll just show you real quick. These are all the Get Fuzzy collections. Get Fuzzy is a fantastic comic strip, and it's kind of like Garfield, only a bit darker. And it revolves around a bad-tempered Siamese called Bucky Cat and his owner and his dog companion, who's a sweet little dog called Satchel. And I love Get Fuzzy. I'm sure you'll be able to have a look online and find the cartoon strip yourself, but I love them all and they all spark joy. Again, I've just gone through this pile and I've decided to keep them all. They're all travel books, and you'll see a theme. They're all of Finland and Alaska, which are two big trips which I made not that long ago, and I like the books just because one day I'd like to visit both again, and they have nice photos and fun facts, and I just like to remind myself of the trips that we made and look forward to future ones. Now this is something a little bit different. I have two of these and they are both the exact same thing. And that's because I'd ordered one, it never showed up in the post, so I was sent a replacement, and then the original actually turned up anyway and they said, well, just keep it. These are the original screenplays of the film Amadeus, and they're actually signed by Tom Holtz, who played Mozart in the film. I love the film Amadeus. It is one of my all-time absolute favorite movies. I'm just obsessed. I love it so much. So you can see it's all typewritten and or at least printed out in that style. And yeah, I just thought it was a nice memorabilia, something special, and I never thought I'd get to own two copies, let alone one. And this one is just signed by Tom Holtz, and the other one is signed by Tom Holtz and some of the other actors from the cast as well. So as you can see behind me, I've started to line the kitchen counter with the books that I've gone through and wish to keep. So I'm just going to show you, I've just been through another pile, and these are all dog related books. So as you may already be aware, Tim and I have a cat and two Alaskan Malamutes. Now before we got Leela as a puppy, I spent 3 years researching the breed, doing all of my homework, really making sure we were absolutely as prepared as possible for the responsibilities of becoming dog owners. And we actually took quite extreme measures. We left Edinburgh city centre and moved to the countryside because we wanted a house with a garden and countryside to be able to give our dogs the best lives possible. And so that's what we did. And to help me prepare, I particularly like these two books. I read shelves and shelves full of books, but these two are my favorite. This is The Perfect Puppy by Gwen Bailey, and this is Before and After Getting Your Puppy by Ian Dunbar. I think they're both absolutely brilliant books and must-reads for anyone who is thinking of getting a puppy. Even if you've had puppies and dogs before, I think every time you go back and read these books, you can actually learn more or remember things that perhaps you forgot. And a book which I've decided I am not keeping is The Art of Raising a Puppy by the Monks of New Skeet. And by the way, in case you're wondering, I know we often introduce Leela and Rumo as twins. And they are in fact brother and sister from the same litter. They were 2 of 10 puppies in the litter. And we actually adopted Leela at 8 weeks old. And when we did, we had friends giving us so many beautiful gifts for her when she came into our lives, including these 2 books, which were really fun. So these remind me of Leela when she was a teeny tiny puppy. They're lovely books in their own right, but they also have great memories attached to them. And in case you were wondering, Rumo did not come into our lives and join our family until the pups were nearly 9 months old. And Rumo had actually been adopted out to another family, and he got returned to the breeders because the family felt they couldn't cope with him for whatever reason. And so one day I was looking on the breeders website totally randomly. I mean, I hadn't even looked at it since Leela came into our lives, because now I had my own puppy. I wasn't interested in looking at photos of other people's puppies. But I clicked on the website, and for whatever reason I clicked on the rehoming tab of that website, and I know that whenever I'd looked previously it had always been blank. There'd never been anything there, and there was just a couple of sentences, no picture, and it just said young male been returned through no fault of his own, looking for a forever home. So I got in touch with the breeder just by text message, sort of asking her, you know, what's going on there, and found out it was in fact Leela's brother Nanook. And it's funny how things work out, because we had always planned to have 2 dogs ultimately, but we always thought we would wait until Leela had matured, and Malamutes mature very slowly. They're not fully mature until they're about 3 or 4 years old, depending on the bloodlines. And so it was much earlier than we'd ever planned to adopt a second dog, but we had many conversations in a very short space of time, and I made plans and schedules and financial budgets and everything to see, was it possible, would it work? And so we decided to meet Nanook, and we took Leela with us, of course, because it was up to her if she liked her brother and they would get on, whether or not we would consider adopting him. Needless to say, they were reunited, and instantly they were like this. They were inseparable, bouncing around, playing, happiest I'd ever seen Leela. Honestly, it was just so moving and so touching, seeing the sheer joy on their little puppy faces as they ran around together. And you know, they've been reunited after what, 6 months apart. So a week later, Nanook joined our family, and with his new life we gave him a new name, and he was named Rumo. And they have been inseparable and the best of friends. They make each other and us so happy, and adopting Rumo was one of the absolute best decisions we ever made, and that was almost 6 years ago to the day. This is 51 Puppy Tricks by Kyra Sundance, and this is my all-time favorite book for clicker training. I have recommended this book to probably literally hundreds of people over the years. I used to be very involved in dog rescue and charity work, and I have tried to help many different Malamute owners in particular over the years. And this book is my go-to book for recommending positive clicker training methods. It is so well spelled out and shows you step by step exactly what to do, and also has different tips and tricks if you're not getting the results that you're hoping for, and where you may be going wrong and how to correct that. There are so many fantastic tricks in here. Some are a lot more useful than others, and there are a couple which I would never dream of teaching my dogs. For example, one of these is how to fetch you a drink out of your fridge, and there is no way I'm ever teaching my dogs how to open the fridge. So as I mentioned, I spent 3 years before we actually adopted Leela researching the breed, and I read pretty much every book out there on Alaskan Malamutes. And these are the few which I have decided to hang on to, and I let go of everything else when I went through the books category last year. So this is a very slim book, but it's a complete pet owner's manual to the Alaskan Malamute, and even though it's very slim, it's actually packed with quite good information, and I like this one. This is a far more detailed book, as indeed is this one. And this one is an absolute classic, the Alaskan Malamute, Yesterday and Today. And would you believe, many years ago, this book was listed on Amazon selling for over $2,000. In the time since, though, I am pleased to say that the publishers listened to all of those that wrote in and complained about this, and they did release a new edition, which was a paperback edition and much more reasonably priced. I used to have 3 copies of this actually, but this is the only one I've kept. And it's a lovely book full of photographs and the history of the breed and how it developed, and the history of the different bloodlines and kennels. And yeah, it's just a really valuable resource for anyone who owns a Malamute, and I love this book. And in fact, these publishers actually asked me to write a book about Malamutes, which I started and never finished. I should probably do that. Just to give you a little break from dog books, I picked up this pile here, and these are sort of information, self-help type books. So this is just a fun little book which Tim got me recently. I have yet to read this. This is on the list of books to read, but it looks really fun and just light-hearted. This is It's Just My Nature by Carol Tuttle, who is the psychologist behind the Dress Your Truth series, and a viewer actually recommended I looked into this. So I've watched a lot of Carol Tuttle's videos and they're very interesting, but I have yet to read the book, and I will do so soon. I'm really looking forward to it to see if it can help me make sense of what I think I learned from watching the videos. Basically, the concept behind the Dress Your Truth series is this. Carol says that every one of us is one of 4 distinct types of energy. And you dress accordingly depending on which energy type you are, and that's supposed to bring to fruition your potential and your inner and outer beauty. So really it's all about learning to dress yourself and present yourself to the world according to who you really are at your core. And it's very interesting. I do like to go into these things open-minded. It is a bit hard though to not be skeptical about this, but it's very interesting, and as I say, I've yet to read the book. One of the most inspirational talks that I have ever heard on YouTube was given by Hal Elrod, who wrote this book, The Miracle Morning. Hal Elrod is, in my opinion, a very eloquent and very charismatic speaker, and I really like the positive message which he was trying to get across. And this book is all about teaching us to make the most of the early hours in the morning, to really focus our minds and do very simple steps towards achieving the life that we really desire and succeeding in our potential and our endeavours. And I have yet to read this book. I do know all about it. I have taken notes from different talks and videos that I've seen about the Miracle Morning, but this is still quite far down my reading list at the moment. I have many other things to get through first, but I'd be really interested to know if any of you have read this book and if any of you follow the steps. And if you do, please do comment below and let the rest of us know if it's definitely worth giving this a try, because I'm really intrigued. I'm not a morning person in the slightest. I'm totally nocturnal, and more often than not I'm still pottering about doing things at 4, 5, 6 in the morning and get far too little sleep and then get up again at some silly time. So I never get enough sleep, I never go to bed at a reasonable time, and I really need to correct that. I really need to grow up and like have a normal lifestyle, so I thought something like this might actually encourage me to do that and be a very productive person. So let's face it, I'm not getting any younger, I'm not getting any older either though, mind you. It was my birthday last week and I turned 29 again. I've been turning 29 for a really long time. This is like an in-joke in my family, but actually Tim's getting a little bit upset because he'll be turning 40 next year and he doesn't like it that he's aging and I'm telling everyone that I'm 29. And actually, turning 29 repeatedly does have its drawbacks though, as I found out last week. I received from my father, instead of a gift, a message saying, "Christine, happy 29th. As I've already given you a gift for your 29th birthday, I'm not getting you another. Love, Dad." So there are drawbacks to staying the same age year after year, but I don't mind. You've probably heard me talk about this book before, but this is Sink Reflections by Marla Silly, also known as The Fly Lady, and this book is all about learning daily and zone cleaning routines. This is an excellent book, especially if you struggle with mess and clutter and get overwhelmed by your home. This will teach you how to take very simple but very effective steps to banish the clutter and dirt from your home forever. I know that a number of you did comment and let me know that you'd be interested in me making a series about the Fly Lady system as I learn to use it. And I am working on that, so rest assured that series is coming in the near future, so just hang tight. Alright, I've just been through some more books and I'm just going to show you very quickly. These are all to do with Arctic adventuring and travel with sled dogs. First up, this one is excellent if you're interested in learning the sport of mushing with your Arctic breed dogs. This is a real life story about a woman who crossed the Arctic with a team of sled dogs. This is the book written by my friend Joe Henderson, Malamute Man, Memoirs of an Arctic Traveller, and it was with Joe and his team of 22 Alaskan Malamutes that I did an expedition through the northern side of the Brooks Range in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And I don't actually have a copy of his second book, but it's actually my photo from that expedition, which is the cover picture of that book. This was a gift from my sister-in-law who used to work at the British Antarctic Survey, and this is a book produced by them all about the expeditions that they've made into the Antarctic using sled dogs. The next book is an absolute classic book and classic film. This is The Princess Bride. I love this book and it's such a funny film. And actually, as I was flicking through this book, out fell this $1 bill from Brunei. Now this must be extremely old because I have not been to Brunei since probably around 2003, maybe 2004, anyway, something like that, a very long time. This is a book which I have had since I was a very little girl, and in fact it's so old it has my childhood scribbles in it. This is Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. Love this book, I love this story, and I love this particular book because it smells amazing, and the smell of this book just takes me right back. It has great sentimental and nostalgic value as well as being an excellent story. These are all books which I have been given or loaned by other people which I need to read. These two from my sister, this my dad insisted that I would enjoy reading, and this was a gift from Tim. The name of this book is Secret. So these are all on my to be read pile. This is a recently purchased book which I've yet to read, and this is Clever Dog, Understand What Your Dog is Telling You. I'm really interested in reading this. And speaking of communicating with dogs, I don't know if you've heard of Sean Ellis, but this is his book, The Wolf Talk. Sean Ellis is a very unusual, very interesting character. He not only is able to communicate with wolves, he is actually a member of a wolf pack. And this is such an interesting book. If you're interested in wolves, definitely look up Sean Ellis and check out this book. I think he's also done TV stuff. If you're interested in wolves, you will love this book. It is so interesting. You get the most unique insight into the world of wolves as Sean Ellis describes the relationships between each of the wolves and also between the wolves and himself. It's very interesting, and I really enjoyed reading this. It is fascinating to me. These are just 3 reference books which I have had since I was a very little girl. They're all dog books and I love them all and I'm keeping them all. This is just a 25th anniversary edition of the Worker magazine, which is produced by the Alaskan Malamute Working Association here in the UK. We're members and have been for several years, and in fact they are the body who awarded Leela and Rumo their working titles and working awards. And if you own a Malamute and you're interested in working them and getting together with other Malamute owners and learning more about the breed and what you can do with them and their potential, then definitely check out the AMWA. Likewise, if you have an Arctic breed dog, whether a Malamute or a Husky or a Sami or whatever it may be, another great resource is the Siberian Husky Club of Great Britain. I went to one of their beginner musher workshops many years ago. I think it was the first weekend we had Rumo actually, so that was like 6 years ago. Anyway, I've hung on to this because the information is timeless and it's all about the equipment and the techniques and everything you use to get started when learning to mush with your dogs. And I believe this is probably the last dog related book in my collection, so for those of you who are not into dogs, I apologise, but it's coming to an end, I promise. This is an excellent novel. This is Yukon Alone by John Belser. He was a journalist who decided to tag along the Yukon Quest, which is one of the biggest and one of the harshest international sled dog races in the world. And I think it might be the longest. I think it is longer than the Iditarod. I might be wrong about that. In any case, it's an excellent book. It's very vivid, it's exciting. Even if you're not into dogs, this is a really good read. And if you are into dogs, well, you just adore it. I've just been through the pile of really big reference books that I keep in my crafts room. These are books which have stunning photographs of animals in particular and nature, and I love these as inspiration and resources for my projects and artwork and things. I'll just show you very quickly. This one is Animal and it's a really big chunky book and I love it. This one is Where to Go Wild in Britain. Again, beautiful photos. This one is particularly stunning. It has the most beautiful photographs in it as well. This is called Origins. And this one is the Encyclopedia of Wildlife and the Sea, and it is full of beautiful images of sea creatures and all sorts of things. And this is my book on aquarium fish, and you probably don't know this, but we do have a large tank of tropical fish in our garage, which is full of almost exclusively different varieties of catfish. We have had them all since they were very little. I remember when we got our little sailfin plecos, they were teeny tiny. They are now both over 12 inches long. They're huge and they're called Zoidberg and Admiral Akbar. Tim named them. And we've got lots of other types of catfish. Some of my favorites are the upside down catfish. They literally swim upside down. They're really cool. And all our fish are really old. The plecos and some of the cory cats and things they're older than Milo, and she's turning 10 next month, so they're about 11 years old. And I think the youngest of our fish, they're from Edinburgh, so they're about 9 years old. I have no idea what I've done to keep them going this long, but I'm glad they're thriving and doing well because I love them. I've just gone through another pile of reference books. These are similar to the ones I just showed you. We've got the Wildlife Photographer of the Year. This book is from 1992. But it has really beautiful photos in it, so I love it. These two are written by David Attenborough, who is just such a national treasure. I love David Attenborough. I love his books and I love his TV work. This one is Extreme Nature from the Smithsonian collection, and this has absolutely amazing photos. And the next four are all Reader's Digests. This is Nature's Masterpieces, Intelligence in Animals, Exploring the Deep, and finally, Through the Great Canadian Wilderness. These are all such beautiful books. They're full of stunning photographs of Mother Nature and the animal kingdom, and they definitely spark joy. I love everything to do with nature and animals and travel, and I've seen a lot of the world already, but there's so much more I'd love to see. But in the meantime, at least I can enjoy different things through the medium of photography. And if you didn't know, photography is also one of my biggest passions. Next up, I have gone through my jewellery books. I used to love making jewellery. I haven't done it for a while actually, but I need to get back into it. I have all the materials, so really it's just a matter of doing it. This is a lovely book, lots of cool techniques. This is a Bead and Button magazine. I only ever bought the one issue, but I really enjoyed it. I don't need loads of magazines cluttering up my home, but I like this one. Make your own jewellery, again, step by step techniques. Wire jewelry, I used to do a lot of wire jewelry back in the day. And this is slightly more advanced techniques. They're all great books and they definitely inspire lots of joy and lots of creativity. The next pile is to do with learning how to draw. And I've got a few. They're all about learning to draw animals and they all make me very happy. I particularly love painting and drawing dogs and cats. But I just love animals generally, and I'm not the most talented, but it's not about that. It's about learning new things, pushing your limits, and just trying out new stuff and having some fun. Here are two books which I am going to be letting go of. This one is actually Tim's book, which surreptitiously crept into my collection of books somehow. And it's nice, but it's not really my thing. So I'm going to put it aside and see if Tim wants it back in his collection or if it's to go somewhere else. This again is one of Tim's books that he snuck into my crafts room and said was mine. It's the Encyclopedia of Illustration, and even though theoretically it should inspire joy, actually I don't especially love these illustrations, so I'm going to let it go. These are some more craft books, and if you follow me on Facebook, you'll know that I've been playing with candles. Just last week, I think it was, I refilled all of my used Yankee candle jars and gave them new life, and it worked out really well. So I haven't done anything as fancy as this because I'm very new to candle making, but I will definitely give some of these techniques a try. I do make a lot of greetings cards for different sellers, and I've never tried this. This is creating greeting cards using glass painting techniques, so I'm going to give that a try. And these are some more books to do with card making techniques that are really, really helpful. I've got 3 books from my crafts room which are all to do with Celtic art and Celtic knotwork and step-by-step illustrations of how you come up with these designs. And I like those too, but I don't really feel this one has anything new to offer above those ones, and I prefer those, so I'm going to let this one go. So you may be wondering what it is that I am actually reading at the present time. Well, at the moment I'm working my way through a box set which Tim gave me for Christmas. This is the Shadow Hunters box set. I love vampire fiction, and I know all these sorts of books like Twilight and whatever are aimed at teenage girls, but I don't care. I love them, and I think I like vampires and all that stuff because I really like the idea of being young forever. That's what it really comes down to. But actually I really like the adventure, and I like the alternative realities and, you know, magic and things like that. These books are really exciting. I did watch the TV show on Netflix recently, and the books are nothing like the show. I wouldn't say one is necessarily better than the other, they're just very different. Unlike Vampire Diaries, if you have ever read the first Vampire Diaries book, which I have many years ago, I personally felt that book was one of the worst books I've ever read in my life. It was awful. And I actually refused to watch the TV show Vampire Diaries for years, even though everyone kept telling me I would love it and I should watch it. And I refused because I'd read the book and I wasn't interested. Anyway, one day I did start watching the show and I was totally hooked. I loved it, absolutely loved Damon. And the stories are just so ridiculous and so exciting, and I love them all. But I haven't actually watched Vampire Diaries or the originals or any of those shows for a couple of years now. At some point I'll go back to them, but in the meantime, yes, this is what I'm actually reading. I do read a lot of much more serious and highbrow things as well. In fact, my Kindle is probably 90% full of the English classics, because the English classic novels are really my true love. You know, books like the Jane Austen books and Charlotte Bronte, and I just love really old classic romance novels, I guess you'd say. So following on from my revelation about my love of vampire lore, this will probably come as no surprise, I have a little graphic novel of the first Twilight book, and it's just different and fun. And yes, I did like the Twilight books. I'm not a massive fan of films. In fact, I'd say all but the first film are pretty terrible, in my opinion. And I am Team Edward all the way. This was just a silly little book which I ordered on Amazon on a whim one day because I thought, oh, maybe I should like try and paint or draw vampires, and I never did. But one day I will. And this is just different examples of how vampires are portrayed in art, and it's quite interesting. So back to things which reflect a more refined palette. This is a lovely book by a local artist called Darren Woodhead, and it shows examples of his artwork, which is all nature and animals in Scotland. I actually got to meet the artist at an event where I was volunteering and helping to manage the event. It was a swanky do at a very big firm of lawyers in the centre of Edinburgh. At the time I was volunteering for the RSPB, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, and there was a beautiful exhibition and all these lovely books and things for sale, so I bought one to support his work, not only because I like to support local artists, but because I think his work is exceptional. When I was a teenager, I really enjoyed the artwork of Gauguin, and this is a book written in French which my mother picked up for me when we lived in Gabon, West Africa. And at the time I was doing my A-level French, and we had to pick a topic to discuss as part of our exam, and I actually picked Gauguin, and this book was invaluable as a resource to really get, you know, the right language and to learn the correct phrases and terminology to describe what I was trying to describe in my exam. And so this is a really old book, but I absolutely love it. Here I've got two books which again are actually Tim's, but he snuck them into my collection of books in the crafts room, claiming that I should have them and love them, but actually I don't. They are quite funny. This one is Zen and the Art of Knitting, and this is The Knitter's Gift. They are both quite light-hearted, amusing books. This one explores the links between knitting, spirituality and creativity, and this is just inspirational writing inspired by knitting. And I'm not a knitter. I would love to be, but I've never actually taken the time to try it. I've done arm knitting and I've done finger knitting techniques, and I enjoyed those, and someday I'll learn to knit, but I'm not that interested in reading these books. So even though they're quite fun, I'm going to put them on the pile of books to let go of. This is a gorgeous coffee table style book by Neptune. They make beautiful kitchens and cabinetry and furniture and all sorts of things. And I was given it when I went to their showroom in Edinburgh. Tim and I have actually been working very hard for months and months trying to figure out what we can do to improve our kitchen. We would love to be able to completely remodel this entire kitchen from scratch, and at some point it's going to have to happen because we recently found out that there is no insulation in any of the walls in this room whatsoever. There's actually not enough insulation in the attic either. And if you saw last week's DIY video about us insulating the attic, and I think that was a reasonably amusing video for anyone who is watching it, then you'll know we're trying to take steps already and do what we can ourselves. But we've been looking into so many different options. This kitchen and everything in it pretty much is about 22 years old, and it's starting to fall apart, and I'm just not in love with it at all. I love the space, I love the feel of this kitchen, I love to cook in this kitchen, but it definitely needs upgrading and updating. So hopefully at some point in the future we'll be in a position to undertake this project, but it is, as anyone who's ever remodeled a kitchen will know, this is a huge and very, very expensive undertaking. So I've just gone through some more of my crafts books, and I love all of these ones, so I'll show you real quick. The Book of Crafts. This is a beautiful book, and I just want to do everything in this book. Everything in this book just looks so gorgeous and so beautifully presented, and Just love this book. It's one of my favourite crafting books. Next I've got a series of watercolour books. Watercolouring is something that I only got into very recently, 2 years ago pretty much. I'd never done watercolour before. I had always imagined it to be extremely daunting and that you needed to be very precise and you couldn't make any mistakes. It's not like acrylic or oil where you can sort of fix things later, but I've actually really enjoyed watercolouring. I've gotten really into it. I love these artists. This is Jean Haynes. She's very talented, and so is Shirley Trevenor. I really like this book as well. This one actually teaches you how to be bold and take risks with watercolour and break the mould and all the things you thought were the rules of watercolour. You find out actually there are no real rules. I love Anne Blockley. She's one of my favourite watercolour artists. Her work is so exceptionally vibrant and has so much powerful movement in it. And she uses really cool techniques such as putting cling film on wet watercolour to create these really cool textures and lines. I really like her. This is another book by the same artist, Anne Blockley. I just love her work. I just think she's so bold and so creative. Such vibrancy to her artwork. Very, very inspirational. This is a great little book for anyone wishing to learn how to paint watercolours using photographs as your inspiration, and teaches you about perspective and the details you should focus on and what are not important to focus on, because when you have a photo, of course, reality is far more detailed than you can capture in a watercolour painting for the most part, so it's a really invaluable resource. This is the Artist's Manual. I'm sure many of you have seen this over the years. This is just a classic and it teaches you all about equipment, materials and techniques. And this is a lovely little book. This is a step-by-step course to watercolouring. And finally in this pile is this. It's a guide to painting miniatures. This is Tim's. It must be really quite old. Certainly in the 17 years we've been together, I have never seen him paint miniatures, but I know that he still has the brushes and the paints and obviously the painting guide. So I guess he wants to hang on to it. So I shall ask him when he gets home and put it aside for now. Okay, we're getting there. Not a lot left now. Sure you'll be happy to hear it. Okay, these are more crafts books. This one is ready-made and it's pretty much a DIY book on how to make almost anything and everything, and it uses lots of recycled things, so you can use plastic bottles for things or make a doormat out of clothes pegs. It's full of really cool ideas. I really like this book. This is another fine book. This is Creative Crafts and it's one of those all-encompassing compendiums full of ideas to do on a rainy day or just when the mood takes you and you're feeling creative but you're not sure what to do, and I really like to flick through this and get inspiration. This is a book which Tim got me called Cat Craft, and it includes lots of sewing patterns to make your own little cat toys. I've yet to try any of these, but I'm sure I will do soon. Similarly, this is a book Tim got me about making teddy bears. Again, I've never tried to make anything like this, but again, it's for the patterns and measurements and things, and I will try that at some point. This is a lovely hobbies annual, and again, it's just full of inspiration and games and making pinhole cameras and mosaics and fun things to do at Christmas time, all sorts of things. It's got so many ideas. I really like that. This is a lovely book as well. This was a gift from Tim many years ago. This is House Proud by Danielle Proud. This lady is so creative and she does so many things to do with sewing. I'm not amazing at sewing, but I definitely need to practice. So I definitely need to try out some of these things. Ha! You'll never believe this. I've never even noticed this before. Look at that. If you remember, very recently I actually did wallpaper my drawers in my craft room, but I swear I've never noticed this before. How funny. Great minds. Then I've got a couple of these Reader's Digest books of how to make and do pretty much anything. Got that one, and then I've got this one. I'm going to let both of them go because we've actually got a much more modern, up-to-date one in Tim's collection of books, so we don't need to hang on to these ones. So next I've got a few random books. I've got the RSPB Handbook of Birds, and that's because I'm the worst at identifying birds, and we've got so many different types of birds that visit our garden all the time, and I really only recognise sparrows, robins, starlings, crows. I really couldn't tell you what the others were. So I got myself this book to educate myself and try and learn to identify different types of birds. This is a little first aid book to do with dog first aid and health, and this is a really important book to have if you're a dog owner. You definitely need to educate yourself on first aid techniques should something happen, God forbid. This is a program from the live show of the Mighty Boosh. Now, if you don't know who the Mighty Boosh are, they were a comedy act back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. We saw them live, and this program is from their show in 2006. And it's such a surreal and such a far-fetched but hilarious comedy show. It was on the BBC, and their live show was just as good as the TV show. I absolutely adore it, and I think there are few characters that have ever been portrayed on television who are funnier than Vince Noir. And the last item in this little pile is a 2007 calendar of Highland cows, because I love Highland cows. I think they are so adorable. I mean, how could you not love the ginger beasts? They are just so cute. I actually think all cows should look like Highland cows. They're just amazing. And if you've ever been to the Royal Highland Show in Edinburgh, then you actually will know that you can get up close and personal with the Highland cows, as well as their little baby calves, who are just so cute and so adorable. I mean, what's not to love about hairy cows? Okay, this is it. We are now on the home stretch. This is the very last pile of books. And at the top are a couple of books about how to draw cats. And the rest, I think, are all cat themed as well. We've got the Big Fat Cat book, Simon's Cat. I'm sure you've all heard of Simon's Cat. I think that cartoon is hilarious and spot on. This is just a book about caring for an overweight cat, because Milo did get overweight when her brother got sick last year, and we were trying to feed him, and he had a very poor appetite, and it turned out Milo was sneaking a lot of his food, and she got to the point where she actually ended up weighing 6.5 kilos. So in the last year she has lost all the excess weight. She still has the pouch of skin at her belly, but it's just skin. It's no longer packed full of fat. So we've done well. She's done really well. I'm really proud of her. And this is a cat first aid book as well. Then I've just got some general cat books, which I like because either they have something to teach you, like how to communicate with your cats, or they're just really beautiful photos, and they're really good as studies of cats for art projects. This is a lovely illustrated book called Cat Song. This is really sweet. This book I have had since I was a little girl. I loved animals from before I could even speak. I'm sure my parents have some story about me literally having learned to crawl as a baby and crawling directly towards a St. Bernard or something. It was just like, animals were magnetic to me. I just loved animals from day one, and nothing's changed. This is Cat Watching by Desmond Morris. He's a very well-respected author on the topic of cats. This is the Super Book of Cats, which again I've had since I was a little girl. This is also by Desmond Morris, an encyclopedia to all the different cat breeds and terminology. This is a beautiful book as well, all about different cats. as indeed is this one. Another encyclopedia by Desmond Morris. And by the way, apart from the books where I'm telling you that I've had them since I was a child, Tim bought me all of these books. In fact, it got so bad that at one point I was convinced he was in the process of trying to turn me into a crazy cat lady. I literally must have had an entire bookcase full of cat books and I didn't buy a single one of them. I did get rid of a lot. I actually had duplicates and in some cases triplicate books that he had bought me. These are just the favourites that made it through the big purge last year and in previous years when we have decluttered in the past. And this again is a book that I've had since I was a little girl, and this is the very last book for me to go through. So we have gone through absolutely all of my books. I have pulled out a number of books and I'll show you in just a second so you can see which of the books that I am not going to hang on to. So here you can see are all the books that I've decided do not spark joy and which I don't feel need to have a place in our home anymore. So I'm going to let all of these books go, and it's really nice actually because even though I've not gotten rid of too many, I still feel like I'm streamlining my collection so that it really is genuinely just a collection of books that I really love, and there's not a single book anymore where I'm like, I'm not sure I really love it and why do I have this? And that's a really good feeling. So that's everything, and I just thought I'd have a really quick chat with you now that I've finished the process of going through my books about my feelings to do with going through the KonMari Method for a second time. I think when you do the KonMari Method for the first time, unless you are extremely intuitive about the things that spark joy for you and that you love, from the very, very first item that you pick up, I think there is a very steep learning curve. And I think that's also why Marie Kondo tells us to tackle our possessions in very particular order. And I know for myself, and you will have seen, if you've seen my clothing decluttering video from the other week, I was expecting not to find a lot of things to let go of in my clothes. And actually I got rid of a lot of things, like so many more things than I ever would have imagined. Actually, none of the things that I discarded the other week were things that I'd picked up in between doing the KonMari Method last year and when I did it the second time, apart from the flip-flops. They were relatively new. Everything else, I'm pretty sure, were things that I had sorted last year thinking they sparked joy for me. But our tastes change. We become more and more aware with every day that we surround ourselves with things that we love, of the things that we don't care for, because I think when you pull everything out together in particular, as I did in my clothes and I've done today with my books, the things that you love are like shining beacons of light at you. It's obvious that they spark joy and that you love them and you're attracted to them, like a magpie to shiny things. And all the things that you're ambivalent about or do not spark joy for you in any way muddy the waters. And as time goes on, I'm finding I'm becoming more and more in tune with this. And I think that this has become more apparent as I've gone through it the second time, because the first time I found it really hard to get started, as I've talked about in different videos. I really found the concept of an item sparking joy for me a little bit alien. I wasn't really sure what it was meant to feel like. I struggled with it at first. But now that I've come to appreciate what that really means for me personally, I find it so much quicker and easier to now identify all the things that I love and let go of the things that don't. So this is why I'm so glad that I'm doing this for a second time, because I feel like I've learned a lot and I'm continuing to learn and I'm continuing to refine those choices which I made last year and really build on what I learned last year. So if you're thinking of going through the KonMari process yourself, or if you have begun the process and you are in the middle of it like myself, I think you've got to hang on to that vision of the lifestyle that you desire, the home that you really would be proud of, the home that you really want to reflect you. And for me, that involves having only things which absolutely make me happy, which serve a purpose, which are beautiful to me or to Tim. Yes, you do have to compromise sometimes, but that's just life. And every time I make a decision on whether or not something sparks joy for me, I feel like I'm getting one step closer to that ultimate goal. So I think that everyone's vision of the perfect home is completely individual. Yes, you agree. Good boy. Remo agrees. And I think it's totally personal. And that's very much exemplified by, you know, the comments that we receive all the time on our full house tour video. I think a lot of people have mistakenly taken that video to be some sort of style or decor video. It really isn't. The point of it was to show the results of decluttering and reorganizing everything. It had nothing to do with what the house actually looks like in terms of color schemes or furniture or anything like that. It was really about what we'd done with the space and what we had left, and how everything was grouped like with like, similar things together in logical places, in logical order, and the way the house flows. Regardless, it is interesting to me because we've had everything from people saying they love our home and they think it's, you know, really nice, and other people who said, oh, it's ugly and boring. Or we even had someone comment how it was unfit for people and it was just a glorified pet house. So it just goes to show though that everyone has totally different ideas of what their home should be like. So that the home that I'm striving to achieve is many steps away, and we are just at the very beginning of the journey that will take us there. However, decluttering and following the KonMari method has been the biggest leap forward that we possibly could have made, and I'm really enjoying going through this process, and today was really relaxed and really enjoyable, at least for me. I really hope it wasn't super dull for you. If it was, I'm so sorry. The next category is, of course, papers, which was my absolute least favorite of all the categories last year, but this year it will be totally different because, for a start, all of our papers are where they should be, in specific locations and organized. I'm going to try and film that video in the next few days. So as I continue through this process, I hope that you will join me. If you're going through the KonMari method yourself, I'd love to hear what category you're in and how you're faring, how you're getting on. I hope you're doing really well. So just before I wind things up for the day, I just wanted to take a moment to say a massive and a very genuine thank you. I want to thank each of you who subscribed. Thank each of you who've liked my videos, commented on my videos, shared my videos. It means so much to me. I only decided very recently to continue pursuing YouTube in any meaningful way, and so hopefully you've seen that I've started to put out content more regularly again, and I will continue to do so. And I just want to say that your comments in particular really make all the difference to me. I've received so many lovely comments. Like, it's amazing to me that anyone would find my videos interesting, but I'm so grateful and thankful that some of you genuinely seem to appreciate the work I put into these videos. And I just want to say that your words mean so much to me, and thank you. I will stop prattling on now, and thank you very much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed this video and you have a splendid day, and we will see you in our next video. And don't forget, coming up soon, we will be tackling papers.